Earl Monroe has become one of the outstanding players in the league in his initial season.
He dribbled with the ball as if it was a yo-yo.
You can't teach what Earl Monroe did. Earl was born with that dip in his hip, that glide in his stride.
I'll go right.
Again, this season, the hierarchy is going to be real interesting on this team. Because nights like this, with Towns going up against Vooch, this is a mismatch. And Towns opens up this matchup, just making his threes, kind of spreading Vooch thin. And then he's going to begin to work his magic to catch him off the dribble. Again, right here, check out in transition. Vooch, like most centers in the league, they're used to making their way down. But Towns is pretty much almost the last guy to trail. And he's going to catch him off guard, just straight up pulls up. So that right there is going to begin to open things up for Towns. And that's why I said this season, it's going to be interesting with the hierarchy, because we all know Towns has the raw talent offensively just to go off. But with OG being, spread out among the perimeter and teams dealing with Mikal and Brunson, sometimes OG is going to have the favorable matchup. But he's not the most gifted offensively. But his ability to finish, especially once he gets down in the post, it's A1. Same thing for Brunson. He is the team captain. Sometimes he's going to get the favorable matchup going against weaker guards. So he's able to take him off the dribble and cook and penetrate and draw fouls or, get buckets. So this is going to be an interesting dynamic that we'll see play out from game to game. So after Towns makes all those threes, look how close Vooch gets on this closeout. He's afraid of him just pulling up again. Now Towns, being very athletic, just going downhill. Defensive wise, going side to side is not Towns' thing, but just going straight downhill and blowing past, large centers or even smaller defenders. Towns has a very, very good downhill game, as he's just going to blow right by Vooch and get the and one. Again, nights like this, Towns is going to cook. And Brunson has displayed a non-selfish approach to the game, where he's going to recognize the mismatches and let other guys cook. That's the beautiful thing about this team. It's not necessarily star and ego driven. Here's a prime example of Towns blowing by the smaller defender. See, Towns going downhill. He's a complete different player. That speed and agility, he has it. But if only Towns could, use some of those superpowers on the defensive side, the Knicks will be in the A1 position right now. Again, here's a combination play right here. Towns is the last one to trail. So normally he'll pop up and catch Vooch lacking. But right here, you're going to see a combination. There's a threat of shot. And now Vooch, he's real uncomfortable being this high up. He's not a person who could, trail back and vertically challenge guys. So Cat recognizes that and he takes him to the cup. It's too easy for Cat. Once again, it's matchups like this where the Knicks are fortunate enough to have players that are going to let Towns and other guys cook based off of their matchups. Nobody's ego driven. It's all about their brand. They have to get their points per game. None of that shit that we used to see in the past. I'm not going to call out no names, but we've had players like that. And we've seen the results. Winning wasn't really a thing from night to night. So even in the matchup against the 76ers, Towns was in a favorable matchup. Embiid once again in drop back coverage off this pick and roll with Mikal going downhill. But it's really the job of Kelly Oubre, Paul George, and Martin and Kyle Lowry to keep recovering, as they're going to keep him down here in this position. That's why I said Towns had the favorable matchup here. Look where Embiid is at. Look at the rotations. Kelly Oubre, Kyle Lowry, Paul George, they all got to recover. They're low-key protecting him right here. Just look at everyone on the recovery. Look at Caleb Martin. Look at Kelly Oubre. Paul George is ready to recover. These three guys got to constantly recover because Embiid is still in drop back. Meanwhile, Towns is open. So versus the 76ers, OG is really the one that had the favorable matchup. He should have been option A on offense. But because the way Embiid just his lethargic play, Towns also drew a favorable matchup, which you wouldn't really expect because, of course, it's Embiid. He's quote-unquote supposed to be a superstar. But due to his questionable load management and all that, Towns low-key drew a favorable matchup in this night. And DeAndre Drummond also, he plays very similar to Embiid on defense with that drop back coverage. But later on, we'll go over OG actually being the A option on the offensive end during this night. And that's the beautiful thing, going from game to game. Different guys going to be able to cook. And this team being so unselfish is going to cause a lot of problems for teams. It's kind of cute right now because guys are kind of being humble. They don't want to go off on certain nights, coughing up the chance to probably even drop 45. But as the season progresses and the hierarchy begins to get set, things are going to be a lot different. Now, Embiid right here in transition, just like Vucevic, he's going to naturally trail back because, of course, he's guarding the center. And that's what most centers in the league are used to doing. But Towns is going to catch him lacking. And now the setup could begin because the next step to this is Towns attacking him straight off the dribble. So this time on the JB Brunson pick and roll, we got Andre Drummond trying to hedge. And just look at the players left over. Kyle Lowry, Paul George. I want to say an older Paul George. Not going to really be as effective this season. But Towns quickly attacks his closeout. This is easy money for him too. And just one more time, looking at this pick and roll between Brunson and Towns. Just as soon as Towns attacks it, look at the matchups. Kyle Lowry is on OG. And Paul George is on a non-shooter. That's already a sign that Paul George has lost a step or two on the defensive end. He's really where Melo was at in 2017 with the Knicks. Kind of hovering around 20 points per game, but it doesn't necessarily translate to the win column. Again, just like Vucevic, with Towns trailing, Embiid doesn't necessarily want to go too far back, but he kind of gets too close on the closeout. See, Embiid doesn't want to play any drop back coverage. Him just being this high up, it leaves him real vulnerable because Towns is going to go straight downhill, and look who's left to contest the hoop. All smaller defenders. He's able to draw the foul. So right here, we're seeing how Towns is able to compromise opposing centers. Knicks going against the Bucks. Towns once again having a favorable matchup. We're going to see a double screen here. Josh Hart sets a screen, and Towns is also going to set a screen once again, and then Towns is going to pop out. So now Brunson is right on Lopez, who normally is very uncomfortable from this high up. Doesn't have a lot of verticality to get back downhill. And as you can see, Towns, he pops out as Josh Hart kind of sets a pin down screen. But just Towns getting the three-point shot going early, it opened things up for him. Very similar to the situation with Joel Embiid and Vucevic. Now he's going to attack, going straight downhill, taking these guys to the rack straight off the dribble. Knicks in transition. Remember, Towns has already burned Lopez numerous times by being the last one trailing and just pulling up. So Lopez is in no man's land. Very uncomfortable out here. Look how wide open the paint is. And Dame, low-key, is the low man next to Taurean Prince. And look how wide open the lane is. Wow. And mismatch already right here with Dame being on OG. Again, in transition, Towns is the last one trailing. Look at that. But once he catches the ball, look at Lopez's position. He's right on Towns' heels. And he's just going to blow past him. Too easy. The Bucks are in an interesting place because they got an aging center when you factor an aging point guard and just weak perimeter defenders at the 1 and 2 position. That's not a good thing to have. Dame hasn't been a player that has been held to a standard of just the small details of the game, especially on the defensive end. But hey, it's to the Knicks' advantage at the end of the day. And here's a perfect example of what I was just referring to. Pick and roll coverage with a weak perimeter defender in Dame, and also an aging center and drop back coverage. Towns is going to pop out. Just look at the closeout by Lopez. He's not making that. Just completely gets blown by. Once again, in transition, Knicks understanding the assignment. Check out Lopez right here. He's going to be calling for help. He's signaling. He already knows. Look at Towns. Towns is trailing. This is how the Knicks completely compromise defenses. What is he going to do right here? All on the island. Look at the low man right here. Either help out or leave Mikal open for corner 3, which is his specialty. Now Towns going up against the Pacers and Miles Turner. He is the A option right here, as Miles Turner is on the island. And look at the spacing. Look at the low men. They're super small, and Towns just blows right past them. Once again, that 3-point shot Towns has, it opens things up for him. Defenders really want to close out on that, and these centers is leaving them exposed to dribble penetration. Again, Towns on the empty side, left one-on-one to go up against Turner, and he's just a lot to deal with. He gets the and one. And with Towns being an A option in this matchup, there's things that's not going to pop up on the stat sheet that he's going to get credit for. Is right here, just him being a threat on this pop out is going to generate beautiful offense for the Knicks. As you know, everyone's going to try to recover right here because he's been on fire from 3. But just him being a threat right here creates for easy offense for the Knicks. As Josh Hart is not able to convert, but you get the picture. Let's look at it one more time. Pick and pop. Look at Josh Hart. There's one more pass available. If he could thread the needle on the baseline, there's one more pass to OG right in his spot. But you get the picture. Just the threat of Cat on that pop out creates for easier offense. Again, Towns trailing. He's the last offensive player to get back. Look how close Turner is. Turner is very close to him. And this is the threat of the 3-point shot is that bad. But the blow by is even worse. Because Towns does have that ability. Look how he completely blows by him as he draws the foul. Now in this matchup, the Brooklyn Nets had not only their starting center out, as well as their backup. So Karl Anthony Towns was the A option here, as he was completely eating good. Nothing but barbecue chicken out there for him. The Nets just being so small, they got Finney-Smith on Towns, and now the Knicks are running multiple actions. Brunson does a little cross screen with Bridges. Towns with the fake dribble handoff, and now he can just go to work. Space opens up for him. Look at OG in the corner. You got Simmons as the low man. And look how close Finney-Smith is on Towns. This is a blow by in the making right here. Interesting enough, in this matchup, Cat, as we see him right here on this pop out, him and OG, they would have the best matchup. So it's kind of hard to tell. I would say Cat was the A option here because due to the Nets having so many injuries. But the way OG was able to get to the rack and just get so many dunks, the Nets were just way too compromised in this matchup. But again, Towns right here on this pop out, he's going to attack this closeout. And look at all the small defenders on the floor. Like, guys don't really even stand a chance. It's just too easy. So as the Knicks went up against the worst team in the league with Alex Sarr and the Young Wizards team, you know, they have quite a few 19-year-olds that are just kind of learning the ropes of the game. But they got into different bags because with Towns, of course, being the A option, just dominating these guys in the post, we're starting to see a lot of plays from last season. As Towns right here, check out the way he sets his screen. You don't know how he's setting it right here. Look at Alex Sarr looking at him. He doesn't know which direction it's coming from. Look how he sets it. He goes completely over. And now that the defender's completely caught, and now this is a nice little pick and roll between the two. But that right there sounds so small, but this is when you start to see guys really get the chemistry down right. Once again, it's real early in the season, but just to see Towns starting to set very similar screens as Hartenstein, you never knew which direction it was coming from. And going against the last place Wizards, it's not a bad matchup for guys to start kind of going through their Rolodex of plays. Once again, we're getting a lot of reminiscent from last season. Check out this flat screen set by Towns right here, directly behind the defender. He's going to get caught. Very similar to what Hartenstein used to do for Brunson. He frees him up with a lot of space to attack. And as soon as guys get in their corner, defenders are going to be compromised. But Brunson, of course, with his pull-up game, much improved, he knocks it down. But as the season progressed, Brunson and Towns, their chemistry is going to be right. Towns is going to know what direction off rip that Brunson wants to go in. He's going to get a better feel for it. As we seen Hartenstein at the end of last season kind of get that feel for Brunson during the months of, I would say, April, March, May, going into the playoffs, and everything kind of came together in that series against the Philadelphia 76ers.